My name's Reid. I'm a commercial plumber. Prior to FP, I think a lot of my problem honestly started at the end of my 4 years in the Marine Corps. Weightlifting is a big part of that culture, and also just the physical nature of a lot of the things we did on a day-to-day basis, along with 2 combat deployments, I think really took its toll on my body. And being 19 to 23 in that age range, I think my body did a decent job taking it on the chin, so to speak. After the Marine Corps, I continued to lift weights pretty heavily and did labor outdoors, an assortment of jobs that were kind of just manual labor, and gradually felt kind of my body deteriorating in a lot of ways. And I would say probably my back was the first real problem area that I noticed. And over the years, I just kept assuming that it was things like bad form with the exercises I was doing, or too much weight, or not enough recovery, or I had all these ideas about what the problem was and really wasn't aware of what was going on and what I was continuing to do to my body. Eventually, things got bad enough. A friend of mine steered me towards yoga. Why I initially was fond of it was because I think for the first time ever I was experiencing some length in parts of my body that I really had never felt that before. But gradually over time I started experiencing that passive lengthening, that passive stretching without any kind of recoil, any kind of tensioning to go along with it. And I just kept getting worse and worse. And some of the other things I tried, chiropractor. There was a period where I was going to see a chiropractor like maybe 2 times a week. I could really tell, even before I knew what functional patterns was, kind of my body's intuition was that these were all just Band-Aids, more or less. The root of the problem wasn't getting addressed at all. And so when I became aware of functional patterns on Instagram and through a friend who told me about the Power of Posture book. And I think one of the reasons I was really resistant was because, you know, functional patterns really addressed all the problems with all these widely accepted methods of training or rehabilitation or whatever you want to call them, you know, things people pursue to live pain-free lives. And you know, the assertion that those were the things that were actually causing the pain was just like really hard for me to kind of wrap your head around that. And as what happened with me, if you get into enough pain, it'll eventually wake you up and you'll try anything. So that's when I came into functional patterns and scheduled a consultation, and yeah, haven't looked back since. When I came into functional patterns for the first time, the main thing we talked about is how everything comes back to what we as human beings evolved to do, and that's traverse through 3-dimensional space. You know, we didn't evolve as a species to do these arbitrary things that we do in fitness culture. Prioritizing movement was a huge thing to me, and the photos we took on that first day really were eye-opening. I don't think I realized how bad I was. I had never looked at myself like that, kind of from afar before. And being a commercial plumber, I started my apprenticeship in 2015, and you learn quick. That's commercial construction, industrial construction is it's really hard work, and it's very taxing on the body, but it's also a necessary part of society. I was to a point to where I really didn't feel like I could do my job well enough. It's not a career, it's not a job where you can, you know, really be physically unable to do your job and just kind of get by. You have to be able to do the work. And just being able to do what I do for a living on a daily basis, you know, brought me here, and finding that massive back pain and hip pain that I was experiencing just gradually alleviate, you know, and working through the 10-week course and myofascial release has drastically improved my ability to do what I do for a living. And I can't go to work and be in a functional position all day long. It's impossible to do what we do. We work in very restricted areas a lot of times. We work in attics, we work in tunnels. We're working off of ladders, up in the air, off of lifts, in harnesses, you name it. I've found that since functional patterns, the more I address my dysfunctions outside of those 8 to 10 hours I spend at work, the better my body recovers from having to be in those dysfunctional situations at work, you know, which is, you know, frankly, it's necessary to keep society running, right? People need their water, people need water for cooling and heating systems, and waste and drainage and all that stuff. That's how society functions. You know, prior to functional patterns, some of these positions that I would find myself in at work, they could become debilitating. Oftentimes I would get off work and go home and just need to sit down and lay down. I feel like I didn't even want to move. And then subsequently then go to the gym or to a yoga studio and compound these issues, thinking that I was just kind of doing the right things. You name it, sciatica, really bad hip and lower back pain that I would put like an 8 or a 9 out of 10 at times, that it would leave me for days at a time. You know, and I'm 33 now, and this was in my late 20s, where I would just be in bed on the couch, couldn't move, not coming to terms with the fact that the things I was doing were compounding these issues tenfold. Relative to before functional patterns, now I can come home after a really difficult day or a challenging day at work in the field and be able to recover, so to speak, a lot faster. And I sleep better. I wake up and I don't have those nagging pains, right? I feel like my body is more primed to go back into those environments and do the things I have to do. Currently, right now, we're working in a tunnel system underneath a building that's probably 4 foot high and 3 to 4 foot wide. And so if you're not, you know, crawling on your knees, you're kind of having to walk around like a coal miner, hunched over and everything. You know, these things that I'm doing here at Functional Patterns are getting coded into my body, because even while I'm working, I'm somewhat aware of the right tensions I need to have, right? And the best possible things I can do with my body. And when I get out of that tunnel, you know, right, how to move properly, how to stand properly. And that's not to say I'm where I need to be. There's obviously miles to go, but comparatively in this nature of work, prior to Functional Patterns, and now after working with Functional Patterns for almost a couple years now, I think has been night and day. If I could say anything to the men and women in the trades, you know, whether that's if you're in the pipe trades like I am, sprinkler fitters, electricians, you know, carpenters, masons, any of those kinds of people, any people, period, but I can relate to those kinds of people, and I see what it does to these individuals' bodies on a day-to-day basis. And I would say that Functional Patterns it's the way out of pain, and it's the way to probably longevity in your career. You're going to have to be willing to let go of a lot of preconceived misconceptions that you have about what fitness means, and you're going to have to probably address a lot of behaviors if what you want is to be, you know, obviously a healthier person or more fit or whatever terminology you want to use, but, you know, at the end of the day, more functional in what you do at your job, being able to make it through the work day, which then translates to making it through the work week, years, you know, months, years, and down the road. We all see those guys that are in their 60s still working, and they've just had the wheels beat off of them. I believe that with Functional Patterns, that's preventable. And I think there's a different way, and I think there's a better way. Not just to avoid degeneration at such a fast pace, but to, you know, achieve regeneration, to actually improve your situation as the years go on. So I would say Functional Patterns is your best bet all the way.